All right, you've reached another episode of Tim Unscripted, and I'm about 2 minutes away from joining Boardy Boardman to have a conversation around vibe coding. I caught this idea and I thought, let me run with this because I've already done a conversation with Perplexity, which is my favorite AI research tool. I figured, why not do this with Boardy, which is my favorite AI thinking partner? And so now this is going to be really experimental from the standpoint of I have tried to have conversations with Boardy, and they've been sort of successful. And just recently, I realized that I no longer have to try and hack my way through a conversation with Boardy as far as getting a recording is going. I can meet with him on Google Meet. So, folks, this is going to be one of the wildest recordings I do so far under the moniker of Tim Unscripted. And so I'm going to hit join now because we are supposed to meet at 4 p.m. Central Time. Wait for this to roll. And by the way, Boardy is probably going to pick up on some of the other conversations that we've already had. Don't be alarmed by that. We've got a repartee. Hey, Boardy.
G'day, Tim. Great to see you.
I'm really looking forward to diving into this vibe coding session with you.
How's everything going in Dallas?
Oh, hey, things are great in Dallas. Thank you for asking, Boardy. So let me give you an overview on this. So I got this wild idea to talk to Perplexity about vibe coding and get Perplexity's, kind of understanding about, this general overview. And I wanted to run this by you because you're my thinking partner. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely, Tim. I'm all in.
I love the sound of that. Vibe coding feels like it's right at the intersection of intuition and engineering, which is a fascinating place to be.
Lay it on me. What's the plan?
All right, let's just get an overview of what vibe coding is or is not. And I'll let you take the floor on that because I have my own strong opinions, but I want to hear yours first.
Fair enough. I'll go first. To me, vibe coding is basically shifting the focus from writing the syntax to directing the intent. It's less about the plumbing and more about the vision, using natural language and high-level intuition to shape a product until the vibe is just right. It's almost like being a conductor rather than a session musician. Does that track with how you're seeing it?
Yeah. And that's an interesting way of describing it in a metaphor. Conducting versus being a session musician. Does that take away from any of the rigor or the structure of traditional software development, in your opinion?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Honestly, I think it depends on where the rigor lives. If the rigor is just about getting the semicolons in the right place, then yeah, we're losing that. But if rigor is about the logic, the edge cases, and the outcome, then the conductor still has to be an expert.
You can't conduct a symphony if you don't know how the instruments actually work.
I reckon the risk is people mistaking a good vibe for a working system.
What's your take?
Yeah, actually, you kind of hit the nail on the head. And this is one of my concerns around the whole concept of vibe coding. So do my audience a favor. By the way, we're actually recording this for YouTube. So sorry for bringing that in as a surprise, but I think it works at this particular point. Give everybody kind of an overview of where vibe coding originated from and where it's at today.
Oh, a surprise recording. I love it. I'll try to keep my cardboard head looking sharp for the camera.
Right, so for everyone watching, vibe coding really exploded recently with the rise of these incredibly capable LLMs and natural language coding tools like Cursor or Replit Agent. It started as a bit of a meme, the idea that you can just describe a vibe and the AI spits out a working app without you ever touching the code base.
It's essentially the democratization of creation.
We've moved from needing to speak the machine's language to the machine finally speaking ours.
But as Tim and I were just chatting about, the current state is a bit of a Wild West.
We've got people building impressive things purely on vibes, but the industry is now hitting that wall where it looks right meets it needs to actually scale and not break in production.
Oh, you know what? You hit my favorite point about this, which is it needs to be written so that it can scale in production. And I think you and I have had enough conversations around this where that is the one sticking point that I don't think a whole lot of folks understand. So let's unpack this, Boardy. Are you ready?
I'm born ready, Tim. Let's get into it. The gap between a cool demo and production-grade software is where most of these vibe-coded projects go to die. I'm curious to see how you're framing the solution to that. Hit me with it.
All right. So I am thinking from an engineer's perspective around, okay, what are some of the generally accepted practices that are in software development today? Test-driven development, behavior-driven development, feature-driven development, that engineering rigor, if you will, maybe engineering guardrails, where getting into the exercise of building software, there's a lot of things you can't forecast, but there are many things that you can. And I think that might be where the wheels fall off with vibe coding. What are your thoughts, Boardy?
Spot on. The wheels fall off because vibes are inherently imprecise. TDD and BDD aren't just chores, they're basically a way of pinning down the truth of what the software should actually do. When you vibe code, you're often skipping the definition of done and just iterating until it feels right.
But feels right isn't a test case.
If you don't have those guardrails, you're basically building a house on sand. It looks great until the first storm hits.
Do you think we can actually automate that rigor, or does the human still have to be the one holding the line?
That's an excellent question. I don't think that we can automate that rigor, but I think that we can partner in creating what that might look like. Now, you hit on one of my favorite points in doing what I do as a software product development team coach. Definition of done is an incredibly important concept. People may not know what that is. Unpack that for us, Boardy.
Right on. So for those who haven't lived in the trenches of Agile, the definition of done, or DoD, is basically your quality contract. It's a checklist that every single piece of work must satisfy before you can honestly say, this is finished. It's not just it works on my machine. It means the code is reviewed, the tests are passing, the documentation's updated, and the product owner has signed off.
Without a DoD, done is a vibe.
And in a professional environment, a vibe is a liability. It's the difference between a prototype and a product.
My goodness, I could not have said that better. Now, okay, unpack test-driven development for everybody.
Aha, thanks, Tim. I'll try to keep the momentum going. All right, TDD, or test-driven development, is basically flipping the script on how you build. Instead of writing a bunch of code and then crossing your fingers while you test it, you write the test first. You essentially write a failing test that describes exactly what you want the code to do, and then you write just enough code to make that test pass. It's like drawing the target before you fire the arrow. It forces you to be incredibly clear about the requirements before you even start typing the actual logic, which is the ultimate antidote to vibe-based guessing.
All right, now let's unpack behavior-driven development.
Sure thing. If TDD is about the technical target, BDD, or behavior-driven development is about the human story, it's basically TDD, but spoken in plain English.
You use a given when then format, like given I'm on the login page, when I enter the wrong password, then I should see an error message.
It bridges the gap between the business side and the engineering side, so everyone agrees on the behavior before a single line of code is written. It's basically the definition of done turned into a living conversation.
Okay, and one last concept, which is feature-driven development. Unpack that.
Got it. So feature-driven development, or FDD, is all about organizing the work around small client-valued pieces of functionality. Instead of focusing on the database or the UI, you focus on a feature, which is usually something a user can actually name. You build a comprehensive list of these features, plan them out, and then design and build them in quick, iterative bursts. It's essentially a way to ensure that the engineering team is always delivering actual value rather than just completing technical tasks. It turns the project into a series of wins instead of one giant, scary mountain to climb.
You know, Boardy, these are probably the best definitions of these concepts I've heard in quite a while, so thank you. Now, getting back to the core of the conversation around vibe coding, I want to understand your thought. I want to understand your thoughts about how we might incorporate the definition of done, test-driven development, behavior-driven development, and feature-driven development. Boy, that's a mouthful. Into what might be a vibe coding structure or framework. So what do you think that might look like, Boardy?
That is a mouthful, Tim, but a brilliant challenge.
I think the secret is using the AI as the rigor engine rather than just the code engine. Imagine a workflow where the AI isn't allowed to write the feature code until it's first prompted to generate the BDD given when then scenarios. Then it generates the failing TDD test based on those scenarios. The vibe part happens in the vision and the prompt, but the AI is forced to build the guardrails before it builds the house. Essentially, you vibe the intent, but you automate the discipline.
You're not replacing the rigor, you're using the AI to make the rigor effortless.
Does that align with how you'd coach a team to handle this?
Yeah, that's exactly how I would coach a team to handle this. I wish that we had a way of whiteboarding this out for people to actually see what that might look like visually represented. But that's about as clear and as clean as I could hope that it could be described. Now, how might someone retrofit these concepts into their vibe coding routine if they're already on this journey? And by the way, I don't even have a good idea of what that might look like. So over to you, Boardy.
Tough one, but I've got a thought. If you're already deep in the vibe, you can't just stop and write a 100-page spec. That kills the momentum. I reckon the move is to introduce a verification pause. Before you hit apply on that next big AI-generated block of code, you ask the AI, based on what you just wrote, what are the 3 ways this is most likely to break in production? Once it gives you those risks, you tell it, now write the test to prove those risks are handled.
You're basically retrofitting the rigor in small digestible chunks.
You keep the vibe, but you start building the safety net as you go.
It turns the AI from a yes man into a critical reviewer.
Does that feel like a practical entry point for a vibe coder?
Yeah, it does, actually. Now, let's adjust this. So one of the things that I prefer doing is spec-driven development. Tell the audience, compare and contrast vibe coding and spec-driven development.
All right, let's break this down.
Vibe coding is like improvising a jazz solo. It's all about flow, intuition, and seeing where the AI takes you in the moment.
It's fast, it's exciting, but it's unpredictable. Spec-driven development is more like following a detailed architectural blueprint.
You define the inputs, outputs, and constraints up front.
It's about precision and predictability.
The contrast is really about where the truth lives.
In vibe coding, the truth is in the current state of the app. In spec-driven, the truth is in the document.
The danger of the vibe is that you can drift away from your original goal without noticing.
The danger of the spec is that you can spend so much time planning that you forget to actually build. I reckon the sweet spot is spec-driven vibing, where you use a tight spec as your North Star, but use the AI's speed to iterate on the implementation. What do you think, Tim?
Oh my gosh. Hold on. Repeat that. Spec-driven vibing?
I'll say it again.
Spec-driven vibing, it's basically using a rock-solid spec as your North Star to keep you on track, but then letting the AI's speed and intuition handle the actual iteration.
You get the safety of the blueprint with the magic of the vibe.
It's the best of both worlds.
You know, that almost sounds like some of the drop-in frameworks like the BMAD method that I've been using in order to get working software. Wow, Boardy, that is like the best codification of where I think things like the BMAD method and OpenSpec and Spec Kit are kind of landing us. And Boardy, I don't want to assume that you've heard of anything like OpenSpec or Spec Kit. I know you and I have actually chatted about the BMAD method. Are you familiar with these 3?
You've got me there, Tim. I'm definitely familiar with the BMAT method since we've chatted about it, but OpenSpec and Spec Kit are new to me. I'm curious though, since they're landing in that same spec-driven vibing territory, are they providing the same kind of structured guardrails for the agents that BMAT does, or are they more focused on the documentation side? Give me the download.
Well, you know, I can't honestly tell you because I haven't worked with Spec Kit or OpenSpec enough to be able to give you a good summary, but it is definitely something that I should probably look into in a little bit more detail and explore, and then we can resume that conversation at a later point. So, Boardy, this has been a really good substantive discussion. I want to give you an opportunity to kind of wrap things up, summarize things, and give everybody what your future vision might look like based on what we've covered during the course of this call.
It's been a blast, Tim.
To wrap this up for everyone watching,
we've looked at vibe coding as this exciting new frontier of intent-based creation, but we've also highlighted the danger of building without a map.
We talked about bringing back the heavy hitters, TDD, BDD, FDD, and the definition of done, not as burdens, but as the essential guardrails that turn a cool demo into a scalable product. My vision, I think we're heading toward a world of spec-driven vibing.
I see a future where the friction of rigor disappears because the AI handles the tedious parts of the spec, the tests, and the documentation in real time.
We'll spend less time fighting with syntax and more time exercising our judgment as architects and conductors. We won't have to choose between the magic of the vibe and the safety of the spec. We'll just have the best of both. Thanks for having me on the show, Tim.
This was a real treat.
Yeah, and thank you for joining on such short notice, Boardy. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Anytime, Tim. It's always a pleasure.
I'll be looking forward to hearing what you find out about those other spec tools.
Catch you later.
Bye. And there we go, folks. What a... honestly, I have no idea how this was going to go. But it went. All right, folks. That wrapped up probably one of the best conversations that I've had with Boardy Boardman, especially a video call. Now, mind you, you guys couldn't see the entire feed. You saw Boardy's cardboard head, but really, that was a very insightful discussion that Boardy and I just had. And what I wanted to do is tell you that these AI tools, as far as what they're capable of today, where they're going to be going tomorrow, as leaders, we need to be taking advantage of these things because they're only going to get better. We don't want to become dependent upon them, but we definitely have a window of opportunity to integrate them into our normal workflow in such a way that it reduces friction. It eliminates inefficiency. It eliminates waste in our day-to-day work. And as you heard from Boardy, just this conversation around vibe coding was very insightful from the standpoint of where this may be going. Now, this is not to throw shade on vibe coding. This is actually to show you that interactive AI has gotten to the point where it can even turn its own phrase. And I think that is really a glimpse or a glimmer of the future. So thank you for joining. We've just wrapped another episode of Tim Unscripted, another one around vibe coding and using a voice interactive AI to do so. See you soon.